I was seeing a lot of my friends who, again, on paper, they were better than me, better grades, more experience, and they weren't getting opportunities because someone else would beat them to those opportunities. Yeah, that's the thing. A lot of us accountants, I don't know if we chose accounting because we're introverts or became introverts because we chose accounting, but a lot of us are not very good at telling that story. Companies miss out on these great candidates because they can't sell themselves. And at the same time, these candidates miss out on great opportunities because they can't sell themselves. I'm going to get ready for this interview, for this meeting. You can also Google the people or on their LinkedIn, the people you're meeting. It's nice to meet you. Thanks for connecting on LinkedIn, but I'm glad I can put a face to the name now, meet you in person. I practice and practice and practice until it became people say, well, you're a natural. I was like, well, yeah, just like Michael Phelps is a natural at swimming because he practiced, for 20 years straight every day. Same thing with me. I practiced similar to you. I actually during that.
Welcome to CPA Primetime. Today is extremely unique. I've never had a guest like this on before. I would like to introduce you to Ramon Santillan. He is an executive and interview career coach. More specifically, he wrote the book that you can look at if you have a Big 4 interview coming up, okay? Use that for other opportunities. You get a financial interview, an accounting firm interview. And for those of you that are not interviewing, right, I know a lot of entrepreneurs watch this. It's just extremely important to communicate your value in the midst of someone asking you questions and making a decision on you on one call or one interview, right? So I really appreciate Ramon's time. He does have some experience in Big 4. He is out of Dallas, Texas. And without further ado, I would love to get him to talk a little bit about himself. And Ramon, tell them your origin story. How did you get started? And then I know you have a lot of experience. So then what happened with when you went into the Big 4? And then now you're focused on interviews. That's just a super fascinating, career path, right? So please, Ramon, you have the mic.
Thanks, Juan. So, my story begins when I was in college. As first generation college students, I didn't really have a lot of guidance. I had support from my parents, moral support and emotional support, but no financial support. So I had to pay my way through college. And again, I kind of had to figure things out on my own. Because of that, and also because I didn't like to study too much. My grades weren't that great. The thing about that was that in my particular college, University of Texas at Austin, they have this program called the PPA, the Professional Program in Accounting.
Right.
Most accounting students go into that program. It's a 5-year program, and I wasn't able to get into it because my grades weren't there.
Right.
And I still had to get an internship to graduate, and I had to figure out a way to do it. I didn't get into the PPA program. Actually, a couple of weeks into my junior year when I had to get my internship, director for one of the accounting firms for the Big 4, he said, you're not going to get an internship with one of the Big 4. I mean, he just told me and walked away. He turned around and walked away. So I had to prove that guy wrong. And also I had to make sure I graduated.
Of course.
So I thought to myself, how am I going to get an internship with one of the Big 4? And keep in mind, this is 2001, right after September 11 happened, and opportunities were drying up because the economy was going down, and several factors like that. So I had to figure out how to beat these other guys and girls who had better credentials than I did, better grades, maybe more experience. Their parents knew people. My parents didn't know anyone. So I figured I had to outsmart them. So I went in October 26th. I remember because it's my birthday. And I just outdid everyone else. A lot of people think you just get lucky, and it wasn't really luck. I prepared better than anyone else because I
believe it.
I had no other option.
I believe
so
it.
I got an internship, and a lot of the students who, on paper at least, they were supposed to be better candidates. They didn't get the internship. I ended up being an internship with KPMG, one of the Big 4.
I love it. That's awesome.
A lot of my peers weren't getting those internships. So they were getting internships literally as fry cooks at McDonald's.
Oh, man.
And I got a Big 4 internship. So anyways, I did really well there. And I realized that It wasn't so much about, well, I mean, you obviously, you can prepare as much as possible with your grades and all that stuff before that works. But it's really what you mentioned earlier. How do you tell your story that really matters? At the end of the day, they're hiring people who they like. And how do you get people to like you? By having a conversation. Instead of just giving them your resume, your background. If you have a conversation, that's where you get you the job. I tried it there. When I graduated, I tried a bunch of times. It worked really well. And from there, I got opportunities at PwC. I worked there several years. I worked at one of actually the largest oil drilling company in the world. I worked there. I worked for the world's biggest healthcare company. I started my own firm. I sold my own firm, and now I do interview coaching. So amongst, I actually work for a company right now, and they hired me for that too because of the way I presented myself.
Right. That's amazing. And this is so fascinating. I know this is going to be such a valuable episode because we're talking about communication here, right? So for you becoming an interview coach, why did you just, bam, from having that Big 4 experience, right? Landing all these interviews, landing all these positions, having your own firm, dealing with people and entrepreneurs, right? And decision makers. Then what prompted you to say, hey, now I'm going to start teaching this, right?
I was seeing a lot of my friends who, again, on paper, they were better than me, better grades, more experience, and they weren't getting the right jobs or they weren't getting opportunities because someone else would beat them to those opportunities. Yeah. And that's the thing. A lot of us accountants, we I don't know if we chose accounting because we're introverts or became introverts because we chose accounting. But a lot of us are not very good at telling that story. And companies miss out on these great candidates because they can't sell themselves. And at the same time, these candidates miss out on great opportunities because they can't sell themselves. So I saw this problem amongst my friends, and I said, well, let me try to solve it. Let me teach them how I do it. And, one friend turned into 2 or 3 or 4. Then I started doing friends of friends, then acquaintances of friends. Then strangers started calling me like, hey, they told me you can help me prepare for the interview. Can you do that? And that's where it took off. This is about 7 years ago when I started doing this.
Right. That's so fascinating. As you talk, like, sentence after sentence, I just can't help but think of my friends that were also at the Big 4, also interviewing for positions. There was one situation with USAA for their financial department, their accounting department, where one person from each school was going. Just because I can communicate so well, even though everyone from Texas State had better grades than me, who do you think got the role, right? And in PwC, in the actual office, I saw people that were really good when we talk about skill as far as accounting goes, right? Versus a person like me who was not so technical, yet I was talking and rubbing elbows with the partners saying, hey, why don't we think about this? Which line of service are we trying to grow, right? Talking to the partners as if I was growing the business and communicating my value. I didn't have my CPA, right? But one of my best friends who had her CPA and she passed all 4 parts in less than 3 months with all 90 plus scores, right? She did not get a early year promotion. Like I was only 7 months in the firm and they were already telling me, hey, well, why don't we give you this year promotion, right? Because I was on the actual phone with the lead partners, right? We were talking business about how to do more business in Silicon Valley, right? They were telling me what they were thinking. I was saying, no, well, here's what you want to think, right? So that maybe everyone can't call up the partners for all of you that are in Big 4 and everything like that and start talking, real business. But what I was so fascinated was that everyone was sort of timid, right? To even talk to any partner at all, right? And I just didn't. I had a lot less of that, right? So I did have, the unfair advantage when it came to interviews, right? My colleagues knew me. If we're interviewing for a 1-spot position and I walk into the room smiling into the interview room and it's all the interview candidates get to see each other, then they're like, damn, like he came to, you know, communicate his value, right?
He's not messing around. He's here for real.
Yeah. So what would you tell them, you know, kind of the people that have more of that, you know, man, one, calling the partners, telling them you're getting me at a, I was telling them you're getting me at a deal at 60,000 and then going over business with them. Right.
Right.
So someone that could really can't even imagine doing that. What do you tell them as far as communicating their value? Right.
Well, first of all, some people, you know, are born with the gift of gab. And really what it is their environment. They were born to an environment where they learn how to do that earlier than other people. Everyone can learn how to be social. However, there's a difference. There's people who are introverted, people who are extroverts. I'm an introvert. However, when I saw these people who were more extroverted than I was get ahead, I developed those skills on how to communicate with people. So again, some people out there say, well, it's easier for him to do it because he already knows how to do it. Well, I was one of those guys who did not know how to do it, and I learned. So instead of, you know, most people would say, well, I can't call a partner. Okay, I agree. Maybe right now you can't. However, what you can do is say hi to your neighbor when you come out of your apartment. Again, it's baby steps. Wow. Once you feel you have that down, hey, say hi to some other people you don't know. Maybe when you're getting coffee at Starbucks, you can do that. Practice it until you feel comfortable with it. Then take it a step above. Okay. Talk to the
one moment. Because I know how people think. And, you know, as you listen to this, guys, this is not just anyone telling you this, right? This is just not just any advice on the internet. He helps his clients land the interview, get the job, right? Get the deal. Yeah. So what he's telling you here, it's important to go through this exercise that he's about to do. Because as I listen, I know some people out there are just like, you know, it sounds easy to do, right? But this is, I know what he's about to say is really good. So please continue. I just wanted to make that distinction.
Yeah. So, and again, the reason I say it's because it works. People pay me, you know, literally thousands of dollars to hear this advice. And the reason they pay me and then they send their friends to me to pay me that kind of money again too, is because it works. Again, let's start with baby steps. Talk to your neighbor. Just say hi. Don't even talk to them yet. Once you get comfortable with that, take it a step above. Talk to someone while you're riding the elevator. Say hi. After a couple of days, say something. Hey, where do you work? What's on the 8th floor? What do you do? And again, just practice. Sooner rather than later, you'll develop that skill yourself where you can just talk to anyone. It takes time. It's very difficult. It's very painful. But, you know, it's just like working out. If you can't just show up one day and start lifting 100-pound weights, you're going to have to start with the 3-pounders, and you're going to have to push yourself every single day until you hit the 100, until 100 pounds is easy. You can do it with one arm. And it's difficult.
Right.
But you have to do it. If you don't do it, you don't start now, when are you going to start?
Right. And so just to make it easier for them to start out there, if they just see, right, if they just need to talk to more people, right, and that repetition will really help them in just communicating in general. Do you have anything for them as far as what they should say when they just see a random person? Like, because I just feel like, you know, people out there, they're going to want to do this, right? But then they're going to use the excuse, because I know it's really easy to talk to people, but they're going to use the excuse of, I don't know what to say, right? So what is the first thing you would say? Even let's put it this way. Let's not give the neighbor example, right? But maybe there is an interview dinner or some type of networking event before the interview, right? And it's your first time seeing a person. You walk up to them. What's Ramon's advice on that? How do you see things?
So, okay, this is actually perfect. This is like textbook, literally textbook, because I have it in my book, how to prepare for this kind of interview. Mm-hmm. So when you get invited to one of these dinners, especially the pre-interview dinner, what I like to do is, first of all, look at the restaurants. Every restaurant has a webpage, and every restaurant has a story on the webpage. So first thing I would do, Google the restaurants, find the restaurant where it is, and find something interesting in the story. I mean, again, the restaurant webpage has the interesting things about the restaurant. They might say, you know, Al Capone had dinner here, or, you know, we're known for our eggplant parmesan, whatever. So you read that and you take notes. So easy topic of conversation. When you show up to the restaurant, whether you've been there or not, you can say, hey, you know, walk up to someone. First thing, when you see someone, you're there to meet people, and they're there to meet you. That's one thing people don't realize. You're not there just to meet people. They are also there to meet you. Easiest thing in the world, go up to someone and say, "Hi, I haven't met you before. What's your name?" That's an easy, comfortable approach. That's what I do.
Perfect.
And then once you say, my name is Joe Blow, it's like, my name is Ramon. You can say, have you been to this restaurant before? And they might say yes or no. The answer actually doesn't really matter. You can take your cues from there. But if they say yes, you can say, "Oh, did you know that this restaurant is known for the eggplant parmesan? I think that's what I'm going to have for dinner today." And they'll say, "Oh, I really like blah, blah, blah." If they say no, like, same thing.
Man,
did you know that eggplant parmesan is something they're known for? Easy, very easy. But the thing is here, just like in an interview, you have to prepare beforehand. You have to front load the work. You can't do that stuff on the way to the restaurant Googling it. You have to get your computer at least the night before and say, "Okay, I'm going to get ready for this interview, for this meeting." You can also Google the people or on their LinkedIn, the people you're meeting or you think are going to be there. Usually they send you a list of the people who are going to be there. So that way when you show up, you can actually send a connection request before the interview dinner. They'll probably accept it. When you show up and say, "Oh yeah, I saw you. It's nice to meet you. Thanks for connecting on LinkedIn, but I'm glad I can put a face to the name now. Meet you in person." And then they can say, "Oh, who else is here?" And they'll introduce other people because they already know you, as opposed to everyone else who is just showing up that day and doesn't know anyone. You already kind of know them before. It makes it easier. It makes a big difference.
Man, that is super easy. That's super step by step. So I didn't have a step by step process. My interview dinner went so well with PwC, with their partner, but I also had the unfair advantage again, like at the table, not only communicating, I actually held back on that one. This was super interesting. This was my strategy for that dinner, was to talk last, like let everyone tell their stories, because it was kind of one partner, everyone was going around, right? And then, everyone knew me. I was gonna do it again, right? So, oh no, Juan is gonna talk about this business that he's running while he's in accounting classes, and he has a story, So the next day, the partner starts the interview off with, "Man, we really liked you last night. We know all we need to know about you. Now you just ask us questions for 30 minutes, right?" And I have my 5 questions, so I had to come up with more questions. But even with, I still should have had that, process that Ramon just talked about. That was good. I didn't do any of that, right? I was just kind of not necessarily winging it, but we were just kind of showing up, right? So your book, I'm sorry, were you going to say something on that?
Yeah. So I was going to say, maybe you don't feel like you had a process, but you do have a process. It's just become so natural to you that you don't even think about it.
Interesting.
That's what most people do. I mean, if you don't have a process, create one. For you, it was easy because you practiced so long. You've been so good at it for so long. But someone like me, I practiced and practiced and practiced until it became people say, "Well, you're a natural." I was like, "Well, yeah, just like Michael Phelps is a natural at swimming because he practiced, for 20 years straight every day." Same thing with me. I practiced similar to you. I actually during that dinner because I wanted to make sure that I didn't seem like I drowned out everyone else. So what I actually did to help me out still, I would take the lead and told, "Hey, how about you, John? You haven't said anything. What do you think about the topic?" So I look good, and I because I was taking the lead, but I also looked good because I was helping other people. So again, when I went out the next day, the job was already mine before I even got to the interview.
Love it. Love it. So, no, your book, what is the name? Tell us a little bit about it, right?
So I have a book, and it's available on Amazon. It's called Big 4 Interview Questions. Big and the number 4.
I'll link it below.
Yeah. And that book is basically what I did with all the clients I've had. Every time they go to an interview and they come back, plus my knowledge, obviously, interviewing and being interviewed, I made a list of all the questions that people got when they got interviews. And then I ranked all, I think there was like 150 questions. And I ranked the top 25 questions that I saw. And these questions probably took 80% of that 150 questions that are, of the interviews. They're the ones asked most often. And so I said, okay, well, these are the ones that we know for sure are going to get asked. Let's come up with an answer to it. So what I did in that book, which is real interesting, is I put the question, the real reason that question is being asked, the typical answer, why the typical answer is wrong, and then the perfect answer, and then the framework on how you can answer, you can give your perfect answer. So this book's not about memorizing my answers, but rather figuring out what your perfect answer is.
That's good.
So it's actually been very successful amongst people on the Big Four. I get emails constantly saying, hey, I actually bought your book online and I got the interview, and people were wowed, and all the questions were in your book were there. And it's a short read, but again, because I want to focus on the ones that they're really going to ask you, and to make sure that you came up with an answer that was authentic to you. Not my answer, but your answer.
Interesting. So the people that come to you and email you and maybe even tell you their story, right? What's just one of the fascinating things that you've seen in some of these emails, people just thanking you like, oh man, I couldn't do this before, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, you can look at the Amazon reviews and people will tell you, not just accountants, but engineers, a lot of engineers actually enjoy my work. Again, people will say, I've been to, this is very common actually. They've been interviewing for the past 6 months, or, looking for a job for the past 6 months. They can't get past the phone screen. And after reading my book or working with me one-on-one, they get phone screens. I mean, they haven't even finished the phone screen when they say, you know what, we want to schedule you for an interview next week. This actually happened day before yesterday. Someone called me, actually last week, same story. He had 7 phone screens. He couldn't get past any of them. We worked for 2 hours. 15 minutes into the phone screen, they said, we want to schedule you an interview for Tuesday. So this last Tuesday, he had an interview. He nailed it. They said, actually, Monday he had the interview. He nailed it. They said, okay, let's have a phone interview, in-person interview with the president, which was today. He nailed that one. And then he has an interview with the final person on Friday, and he's going to nail that one too.
Awesome.
Again, and the reason, he's an engineer, very qualified. He just wasn't telling his story the right way. And that's why I helped him with. And again, I work with him one-on-one, but I also sent him a copy of my book. And he said, you know what, your book actually helped me as much as the one-on-one coaching did. That's amazing. I mean, a little book that's, 37 pages can do that for you. Where again, 7 interviews in a row, he couldn't get past the phone screen. He read the book, and now he's at the final interview. Right now, basically, he's going to get the job.
Right. Man, I love it. I love what you're doing for people, because that, you mentioned the engineer, and I kind of mention even other professions all the time, so that it doesn't seem like I'm only talking about accountants when I say, oh, accountants need to talk more, right? I'm like, no, it's logical thinkers like engineers, right? Programmers. I'm here in Silicon Valley. You'll never believe, right? I think that a lot of people have amazing accomplishments, right? Let's think about the balance sheet. A lot of people have amazing assets, okay? Amazing. If you're even in the accounting industry or engineering industry, right, that takes a lot of logical brain power, then it's likely that you've accomplished certain things, right? So I always say that the accounting market and accountants do not have a value issue, right? It's not that they're not valuable enough. They're not communicating their value enough, right? So as far as something like communicating your value in terms of an interview, right? How does that translate to doing that on, you mentioned a phone interview. So that was super interesting to me. I got prepared. I've only ever had one phone interview, and that was to come over here to Silicon Valley from Houston, to change my offer from Houston, Texas to San Jose, right? And I was like, oh man, like I'm great because I'm there in person and I'm, moving around and we're going to do it, right? But I knew like I had to look up some tips online of, well, how am I going to do this phone interview? My voice is very important, I would figure. So, I mean, I've got to smile when I talk. That's the tip that I use, right? What phone tips do you have? Because this is both applicable to people that are going to do interviews and people that are on sales calls, right? So what would you say
very
about
important, very important, like what you said. People can hear a smile, believe it or not. And do you know why they can hear a smile? The reason is because when you activate your smiling muscles, your vocal cords actually stretch out, so your voice has a higher pitch. A higher pitched voice sounds less threatening. So as guys, we usually like to, hi, my name is Ramon. It sounds really cool.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other side, it doesn't sound cool. It sounds like this guy's in a bad mood, and you don't want to work. If that guy's in a bad mood when he's having an interview, how is he going to look like when he's having a bad day here at work?
Yeah.
So, I've had that mistake before. So smile is very important.
My brother had a huge interview this year, and he did well, right? He got the commitment in 2020, but man, my younger brother, who's also running my company with me, he is just, a slow, chill, laid back talker on the phone. And so it's me, I'm on the line with my dad and it's him, and it's the day before the interview, and we're getting ready, and we're like, Julian, like, you're still not talking like loud enough. Like, there's not energy in your voice, right? So what would you tell someone that is low energy, I guess? Do you have any tips for them? Because I can do both, right? But maybe they're not just,
Right. And again, so if I try to be like Juan, I'm always going to lose, because you're better at being you than I am at being you. So I tell people, how do you want to come across? Not how you think Juan should come across, or what do you think he's going to be like. What do you want to be? When you hang up the phone or you walk away from the interview, what do you want those people to think of you? So basically create an interview theme is what I call it. An interview theme is, again, what's that theme that's going to carry you out across the whole interview, whether it's in person or over the phone? Obviously smiling. You want to seem confident. You want to provide your value or explain your value. So a mistake that most accountants make is that they say, for example, my background is in tax accounting. Most people in my field, so let's say my twin brother, who wasn't as prepared as I am, same exact experience, same school, same grades, all that stuff. My twin brother, when he goes for an interview, he will probably say something like, I did 100 tax returns. So what is that? That's a task, right? When I go to an interview, I wouldn't say I did 100 tax returns. That's kind of a given. I mean, I know taxes, so obviously I'm here for a job for taxes, so why do I have to tell you that I know how to do tax returns? Instead, I would say something like, I did 100 tax returns, which created $1 million in revenue for the firm. That's an impact. So that's really what's setting the difference between me and my twin brother. So if you had to pick one or the other, you would probably pick me, because I present you with the impact of my work. Whereas this other guy, he's just doing tasks. Anyone can do a task. We can get an intern right now to do a tax return. Just give him about a week, he'll probably learn it. But if we get doing a task is completely different than creating results and having an impact. The people who get promoted are the ones who create an impact. Again, there's a certain point, especially in the Big 4, where you don't have to be technical anymore. You have to learn be technical, but what's going to get you above than senior manager and partner is the social interactions, selling, basically.
Right.
When I was a first-year associate, I remember, and again, this isn't because it was natural to me or my parents were like this, because I worked at it. My partner came to me and said, when you walk into a room, interns turn around and want to see what you're going to do before they do it. Associates turn around, look at you and see what you're going to do before they do it. Managers, senior managers, even some partners come into the room and want to see what you're going to do first before they do it. And again, that was practice. And that was an impact. Again, social skills, technical skills are going to get you so far. But after that, it's going to be the social skills. And those are skills that you can develop.
Right.
It might take you longer, but you can develop them. Again, you don't become CEO or partner of a company just because you know how to do a tax return or know how to do an audit. I mean, that's basic. That's why you hire interns. That's why you hire first-year associates, so they can do the work. But those people that get promoted, get the big bucks, the recognition, those are the people who learn how to use those social skills. That's really what it is.
Love it, man. That's so true. And so as far as your Big 4 experience goes and just big organizational experience goes, right? I know there are just some politics in organizations, right? And I know that a lot of entrepreneurs watch this content, but also people that are in Big Four, right? That are in organizations, right? That are hierarchical, bureaucratic, whatever you want to call them. I still would have been in PwC if I just didn't, random, like everyone who knows my story, I won't go over it again, but I did just, randomly quit PwC on the day I came up with the idea, right? So if not for that, I would have still been at PwC, and I would have been climbing based on a lot of communication, let alone a lot of other things, right?
Right.
But communication was extremely powerful. Okay.
Right.
So what would you tell them that they do have the plan to stay for 5 more years, into the 2020s? How can they use communication to get ahead inside of the organization, or even for that new interview, right? The people that are going to that are going to land these jobs, now they're going to use some of what they learned from you to get even higher in the company, right? So what are some of those organizational tips that you have?
So this took me a while to learn, but I realized that the people who are going to get you promoted or going to hire you, they care about the big picture. So if you care about the things that they care about, you're going to get promoted quicker.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah,
that's wild that you said that.
That's for me, I thought that if I knew how to do the technical things really well, I was going to get promoted, and that was part of it. But again, if you can say, "Well, I updated the spreadsheet really quick," but the partner says, "Well, I don't care about that." Like, I mean, they might say, "Well, that's good," but what they really care about is making sure the relationship with the client goes well, or that they get a new client. If you go after those big things, you're going to get promoted, you get that recognition. You can do some of the smaller things.
We were talking about getting more clients.
Yeah. Don't worry too much about the little things. Let someone else do it. I'm not saying don't do your job, but there's some little things that you don't have to worry about. It took me a long time because I thought if I just work hard enough and put my nose to the grindstone, they're going to recognize my value. And that wasn't the case. I was there, 24 hours a day, while some other guy was there just 8.5. And then 2 of those hours were at lunch with a partner. He was getting promoted or she was getting promoted. And again, a lot of it has to do with asking the people, what do you really care about, and working on those big level things. Definitely when you go into industry, those things matter. Figure out what they really care about. And again, you might have to do some small things to help accomplish that. But at the end of the day, that big thing is what you want to accomplish. That's how you're going to get your bonus. That's how you're going to get your promotion.
Love it.
Focus on the big things.
Okay, that's just a super interesting insight that kind of speaks to me in what I saw while I was there. As I mentioned, just serving this market, not only actually being a marketing firm and just putting media out for accountants that maybe they don't even come on social media at all, right? But we still do their marketing. But for the ones that are involved with social media, right? Is there anything you can say that is kind of, applicable into how other people would view the accounting market? Or I'll ask that question a different way, more applicable way to everyone. Okay. Here's what I want to know from you. Just knowing what you know, which is probably what I've seen, and the reason I even, I truly love to help this industry communicate their value, right? What do you think, back away from, your clients and everyone that really knows your philosophies now, what do you see just in the accounting landscape as far as communicating your value, right? Like what are a lot of your general thoughts on the market in that topic?
So one thing I would tell you, people who are in the Big Four, and public accounting in general, they're figuring this out. A lot of the jobs that we used to hire people to do are not going to be there for much longer.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why instead of focusing, again, I can do 100 tax returns. Well, guess who can do 1,000 tax returns? A computer. They can do it a lot faster, a lot cheaper, a lot more accurate than you can. So instead of focusing on learning how to do a task, focus on the impact. present the impact. So again, and let's say 10 years, saying I can do 100 tax returns would not mean anything. But if you say something like, I know how to operate the system that does 1,000 tax returns in an hour, and that creates X. Well, if you're able to present that you created X, or you helped the company create X, that's really what's going to keep you your job. Again, these jobs are not going to be around forever. That's at the current company I'm working for. My directive was to create a fixed asset system, fixed asset departments with the least amount of people possible. The first department I worked for, a corporation that had a fixed asset system, we had like about 16 people. And again, my directive as a new company is to make it 2, me and someone working for me.
That's intense. Yeah. So all these processes. Okay. That's super interesting. Yeah. So I'll say this to that. I think that accountants should build brand, right? In the midst of everyone talking about automation and are people going to have jobs, so they don't know if they should get their CPA or not. The truth is humans are going to do business with humans, right? Even if you can, right? Even if the perfect accounting software comes out that just does everything, we're still going to need accountants and CPAs, the actual human beings advising these businesses and doing a lot. There's still so many roles, right? But at the end of the day, I think who is going to fill those roles are a lot of people who, like what we've been talking about, are going to be able to communicate that value, because other business owners do not look at accountants the way accountants look at accountants, right? They might just look at the market in general, right? That's a CPA, that's a CPA, that's a CPA. So you mentioned, and so I mentioned brand, like that's what is really going to help you not go extinct. I can't see it. Even if we do everything as automated, right? They're still going to want to drive across town to do business with JJ the CPA versus I can do it at home and press a button. They're just going to want JJ's extra advice, right? So that being said, what are your thoughts on how people just perceive different brands in accounting, right? Not other people, but people that are not in accounting. So let's say there's a new business owner here in Silicon Valley that doesn't know anything about accounting, and plus he just got funded, has $2 million plus to spend, right? They're going to build a company, except everyone in the company, they don't know anything about accounting, but they need a few accountants, right? How would you say that? How would you, I guess, assume, or from your experience, say that people view accountants before they talk to them? I think that's interesting. Like, that's super interesting.
I think most people think of accountants like some nerdy person who doesn't know anything besides taxes. And again, that's really well, you're an accountant, you probably know how to do your own taxes, right? And like, well, no, actually I was in audit, so I don't know anything about taxes. I go to H&R Block and do my taxes or whatever.
Of course.
That's what they think an accountant is. A good it was so good that the computer just shut down.
Exactly. We're dropping fire. And no, the interview was going so well, which is why I do hope I can recover this file. It's like in a double click to convert. So when I click it, hopefully it'll, render and that type of thing. But man, I'm super excited if it's here, because I would have that. Just this whole interaction has been super authentic. So I really appreciate you coming on the show. And by the way, guys, we just had some technical difficulties. Okay. My laptop overheated. I had the brightness all the way up during an interview. Okay. Note to self, don't do that again. But I believe if you are watching this, we're able to save the interview. And imagine if we didn't save that. So I'm going to go ahead and ask Ramon here my last question. And then after that, even allow him to say some of his parting thoughts. But just my last question for him, I'm just super interested in this, right? And if you're I'll put it like this. What has been your most, high pressured interview or interaction where it was just like, man, this is where, if there was a time in my life where I needed to perform, this was it, right? Describe that entire story to me if you do have a time like that.
So this is something interesting that I talk with my clients about, that they say, there's a particular college that I work a lot with their students, and they ask me like, how many jobs should I apply to every week? And 5, 10, 15, you tell me. And they say in their school that the career services says they have to apply for 75 jobs before they give them another hour of coaching. And these are 21, 22-year-olds. And I say, I'm 38 years old now. I don't think I've applied for 75 jobs in my whole life.
Right.
To me, an interview is a lot like, or looking for a job is a lot like looking for a girlfriend or boyfriend, like finding your other half. Instead of having a bunch that are so, focus on the ones you really want to have.
Mm-hmm.
And then since you have less to worry about or less to focus on, you can really put your energy behind them. So when I go to an interview, I go all in. I never leave anything. When I walk away from the interview, the decision, again, I can control from here to there, from there to the other side of the interview table or the desk. It's up to them. But from this side, I know I did everything I needed to for every single interview. Have I had interviews who went better than others? Yes, definitely. But whenever I walk away from those interviews, I never feel like, oh, I should have said this or I should have said that, or maybe I should have kept it like this. No, because every time I go in, I'm not, part of my French, I'm not fucking around. Mm-hmm. I'm there for a reason. I'm there to get a job. I'm not there to have a good time. Mm-hmm. It turns out I do have a good time because I make that connection, but that's not my main focus. My main focus is not to have a good interview, but not get a good offer.
Right.
My goal there is to, actually, I don't even want to have interviews. I want to get job offers. That's what I want. So I'm there for a job offer, for nothing else. So again, when I go in all the way in. I'm not messing around. So for me, every interview I go to is like the best interview I have, or I prepare that way.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Because I don't want to have, a lot of people tell me, they'll come to me and they say, I don't need your help. I can get interviews on myself. I'm like, oh, that's fine. How many job offers do you get? And I said, well, I don't have a lot of job offers. I had one, but it wasn't really the best one. But I had 10 interviews. I said, well, that's great. You keep on doing those 10 interviews. My clients don't mess around with interviews. We go in, interview. An interview is a job offer you get. And that's really, you're not after interviews, you're after job offers. So let me tell you the specific one that might resonate with your audience. When I got the interview for PwC, actually it wasn't even an interview. It was an office visit. They said, would you like to come in and meet some other people here? And in my naive self, I just went in with dress pants, dress shirts. Wasn't wearing a tie. I wasn't wearing a suit.
Oh no!
I wasn't wearing a coat, but I was still presentable because I was meeting new people and I was presentable. Yeah. And I show up, and then they put me to talk with the partner right away. And luckily for me, or I don't know if it's luck or just preparedness, but I took copies of my resume. I mean, I was ready. Even though I didn't think it was an interview, I was ready for an interview. So I had my portfolio, my resume, and then right off the bat, the partner, I actually didn't think I was gonna meet a partner. I thought they were just gonna show me around. But the partner started asking me questions. But luckily for me, I already had my story ready. I mean, no matter, you can wake me up right now and I can tell you my story right off the bat. So I met with him, I met with the manager, I met with HR. And when I met with the manager, I actually said, hey, so is this an interview? And she said, well, it wasn't supposed to, but now it is, now that you're here. And I got that job. I got that job because, again, I was prepared. I'm always prepared. I never go into a situation without knowing how I'm going to get out of it in that sense. So always be prepared.
Okay. So without just getting into like the details, you guys should check out his book, check out his LinkedIn profile. I have his LinkedIn profile and his book down there. But tell me this to that then. What is like the one thing you always have to do to prepare then? I know there's probably a process and more, but like what's the one thing you think about that just like this is a must, right? Is that research? I mean,
Yeah, so I would say research, not just on the company, not just on the job, but on the people you're meeting with. Because at the end of the day, you're meeting with people.
The people.
You want to go into their background, the work they've done for that company. You want to go into you want to just Google them, basically. You want to look into their Facebook. Maybe you don't bring up some of the personal stuff you find on Facebook, but at least you get an idea, okay, this guy or this girl thinks this way. They're leaning that way. Maybe that's the approach I'm going to take. Which each interview you go to, you should be prepared for that particular interview. Don't worry about anyone else. Same thing with the dates. When you go on a dates, you don't worry about all the other dates you're going to have. You focus on that one person sitting across the table from you, and you are ready for them. No matter what they do, you have an answer ready for them because of your interview theme. What do you want them to see of you when you walk away? What do you want them to think? Once you narrow that down and figure that out, then it's easy. No matter what question they ask you, you have an answer because you know how you want to come across. You can find information on the Big 4 interview book, and I actually have a book coming up, and that one's called Instant Interview Coach. And that's basically, I answer all the big questions that people have regarding interviews, how to negotiate an offer, how to turn down a job offer without burning any bridges. All those big questions, I answer them in that particular book. And that's coming out the next month. You can find it on my website,
That's amazing.
persuasiveinterview.com.
That's amazing. Well, maybe, it's not a maybe at this point. We'll definitely have to have you on again in the future. But for now, guys, Ramon dropped a lot of value for you today here. Go use it. I mean, whether you have interviews or not, use it in just communicating your value or communicating with people, right? And Ramon, I'll give this last, tidbit for you to kind of say your parting, statements. But tell the audience, what are some of the other things that you're doing, right? Some of the other ventures that you're involved with, because I know we focused on just one piece, right? So that's my last, this is your time to tell them what else is Ramon up to, right?
So aside from my interview coaching, where you can find more about on persuasiveinterview.com, I also do consulting, tax consulting. People from across the world call me and I help them answer their tax questions. And these are entrepreneurs from all over the place. And see, again, an example, they're not looking for a CPA. They're looking for someone to solve their problems. And they pay me very good money for that. I volunteer with a national organization called Alpha, which is ALPFA. Big member of them. I'm on the board. I've been involved with them since 2001 for the last 18 years. And I've been on the board for a long time too. And, I have my wife and kids. I guess really what I'm trying to say here is that just because you decided to become an accountant and get an accounting degree doesn't mean that's all you ever have to do. You can do all kinds of different things. This is just a stepping stone to the next level of things you want to do. I say next levels of things you want to do. Because again, it doesn't always have to be accounting. Sometimes you want to do something else like interview coaching. You want to start your own business. Do whatever. It doesn't really matter as long as you want it to do. But again, don't feel just because you made the decision to become a CPA, that the decision you made when you were 21 or 22, that's the only thing you can ever do. Venture out to other things. No matter, again, it doesn't matter what I do. It matters what you do and what you want and what's going to make you happy. So think about that way when you're starting off your career, and especially as you're progressing throughout your career. You can do anything you want. This is just a stepping stone to get there.
That's amazing, Ramon. You ended it off the best way possible. So check it out below, guys. And that is it.